A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to TV shows that deserve the spotlight. So now, here's what we'll do. I got another series that was pretty popular back then, but it might not necessarily serve all that much significance today. While it still might be extremely popular to a lot of hardcore fans, Ghostbusters, the animated series, or as its real title suggests, The Real Ghostbusters, truly was a great example of an animated series that not only managed to make a continuation of the first Ghostbusters movie, but also invent a whole lot more for us to explore with the 4 team members that follow along, bust ghosts, make money, and live in a firehouse all night long. Basically, The Real Ghostbusters is a 7-season long series, beginning in 1986 and ending in 1991, with a lot of episodes. I mean, you could basically just look at it right here.
Shining oil, this night is dripping down. Stars are slipping down.
So I guess that pretty much just takes care of the episode marathon right here. A little montage while we're at it, but the whole thing about it is that this series is really big. It has episodes that are basically well over 30 minutes in length. You got yourself the Ghostbusters intro for the series, which was, in fact, accompanied by Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters theme song. But then, of course, the whole show itself is full of some crazy things. Such elements will include comedy, horror, and even a bit of drama. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. But other than that, I would certainly consider this to be a great series, by all accounts. And there's a few other reasons that are especially important as to help make this a significant piece of media that anyone today could watch anytime they want. The cast is an especially important part here. We have ourselves the Ghostbusters characters themselves, Venkman, Spangler, Winston Zeddemore, as well as Ray Stantz, the heart of the Ghostbusters, as we pretty much know. And while none of them are in fact voiced by any of their respected actors from the movie, the show does in fact allow for us to feel that we're watching the movie being animated and in an episodic manner. Because after all, we got Peter Venkman himself. And if there's one voice that the likes of Lorenzo Music has covered at around the same time that this was around, it'd be Garfield. That's right. Garfield and Ghostbusters have officially mixed together. And what perpetuates this even further is the fact that Bill Murray actually goes on ahead and voices Garfield in the movie, while also playing Peter Venkman in the original Ghostbusters film. That's crazy. I mean, like, come on. I guess we're not alone in this whole thing itself. I mean, we could talk about how many roles Peter Cullen has covered, while other actors were able to do his part elsewhere and also cover certain other roles. But this is truly a big perpetuation here. And it gets even more crazy when you look at the film Zombieland, which I've also talked about many times over. I might talk about it again at some point, but the thing is, when Bill Murray enters the screen in Zombieland with that famous makeup look on him, it allows him to maintain a social life while also avoiding zombie bites. Yeah, that's pretty much... It's a great idea, but it didn't execute too well. Thanks, Columbus. But the whole thing about it is that the whole film slams on the brakes and the plot itself completely changes into a Ghostbusters parody. Complete with the cast of Zombieland joining in on Bill Murray as he basically reenacts his famous role as Peter Venkman. And by the end of that whole scene that takes place in Murray's mansion, when he gets shot by Columbus, Murray himself was able to put out his last words. He answered a question about what his worst film performance was. And believe it or not, he answered Garfield. His worst film was Garfield, the movie, which had come out 5 years earlier. And so, that itself is unbelievable, but you know what though? It gets even better from there. Trust me when I say that while Peter Venkman's voice is Lorenzo Music, you have Ray Stantz, voiced by the one and only Frank Welker, who also did the voices for lots of the monsters, as well as Slimer. And of course, we get to see Slimer a lot in the show, as opposed to the movie where he's only made a few appearances every now and then. He's been a recurring character pretty much since day one. Even with the newer Ghostbusters films, including Afterlife Part 1, as we actually have a sequel coming in soon, well, I'm not so sure how well that's going to work. The last one didn't really feel like it was needed. But then, of course, Frank Welker and Lorenzo Music aside, there was also Spangler, who was voiced by Maurice LaMarche. You might remember him from shows like Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs, and whatnot. He even had a lot of roles in Futurama, but I really appreciated what he did as Mr. Freeze in Batman Arkham City many years later, after his prominence was all up in the air. But then, of course, you have Winston Zeddemore, voiced by Arsenio Hall. One interesting thing to note here, though, is that Ernie Hudson actually auditioned for his own role, pretty much making him one of the only original actors from the movie to want to reprise his role as Zeddemore in the show. But unfortunately, they didn't need him. They moved to Arsenio Hall instead. And that pretty much just is what it is. Hudson was a little disappointed, but hey, there were other movies in that part as well. But then, of course, the cast gets even bigger and crazier. Plenty of other movies and roles, as well as a few other actors that all come around, pretty much, to basically play different roles. The series itself is a pretty incredible piece. And I sure do recommend checking out the official Ghostbusters YouTube channel in case you want to check out the series itself for free. They've been releasing it as if it were a Saturday morning cartoon since March 2021. About 9 months before Afterlife came out. But the whole thing is, a Ghostbusters resurgence has been going on for the past 3 or 4 years, most likely due to the announcement that Afterlife would pretty much become quite an event in history. And while it wasn't a great film, I probably would consider checking out Afterlife Part 2 or whatever this newer Ghostbusters reboot film is going to be called, the sequel to the reboot. Whatever the case though, I'm pretty glad that the series itself and the franchise overall hasn't totally been phased out after that absolute pile of congealed blood, urinal cake, and pure hot garbage known as Ghostbusters Answer the Call. That was what truly murdered the franchise in cold blood. And for me, it never truly did recover. Even to this day, with all this new stuff coming around, it just never truly did recover from any of that. It's quite disappointing if you ask me, but I just don't know how else to put it together here. So, with that in mind, thank you very much for watching this bit. And be sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side if you'd like to see more on the channel.